What up, everybody? Welcome back to another movie review. Today we are talking about 2024's Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor. And I enjoyed this movie quite a bit, but not for the same reasons I enjoyed Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse. Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse is a legendary movie and is an all-timer to me. It will now be in one of those movies that I rewatch periodically throughout the year multiple times because it's just that much of a classic and it left that much of an impression on me. And I was so disappointed in myself that I had never seen that movie entirely. There was parts that I definitely, caught on TV that I remembered, but there was definitely many parts that I was like, what? Sam Elliott? So go check out my review from Monday and see how I reacted, because Sam Elliott's just one of my favorites. It really is. But let's get into this one. Roadhouse of 2024, Jake Gyllenhaal playing Dalton, Elwood Dalton, when it's a completely different Dalton, because it says at least that Patrick Swayze's Dalton was named James Dalton, so I have no idea. Maybe they're distant cousins, different brothers or something. But I liked Swayze's version of the character so much more. Like when Gyllenhaal says, "Pain don't hurt," and then he wheezes a second later because she's stitching him up or something. I didn't believe him. When Swayze said it, it was almost majestic. When he said it, I was like, oh, that's corny. They're just copying him, that type of bullshit. And and they copied certain lines and certain parts, but then changed it so drastically in other ways. I don't know. I thought this movie should have just been called something completely else. You know what I mean? And it was called Roadhouse, and he worked at a thing called The Roadhouse. The last Swayze movie was called Roadhouse, but he worked at the Double Deuce, and he had a backstory. He had story with the character. This one was just kind of oh, he was a UFC guy and he lost his temper and this and that, but then we have Conor McGregor, a really UFC guy, playing a character that's not a UFC guy. I don't know. It was a decent idea, but I don't think it was executed quite as well. But the parts of the movie I loved was randomly at the very start of the movie, he shows up for a fight and he doesn't have to fight because everyone goes, I know who he is. I'm not fighting him. He kills people. And that's kind of why people feared Patrick Swayze's character. But Post Malone was the guy that he was supposed to fight at the beginning of the movie, and you saw Posty all covered in tattoos. There's I think a custom song that he might have wrote or performed for this movie at the beginning, and it just had me cracking up because I was like, Post Malone's the fucking man that he came out and did this movie and did this scene. Goddamn, good for Posty, getting a little acting credit in his system. He does some acting every now and again. I love Post Malone, but these two for me were the reason I stuck around the most. Conor McGregor's Knox was hilarious in this movie, and I think this was his first acting role, and he just kind of really just went for it, and they were like, listen, just be a complete asshole prick, and he's like, oh, I'm easy, I already am, got it, and just ran with it. And I thought it was also funny though that his tattoos, Conor McGregor's covered in tattoos, and they had to cover every single one of his tattoos. And I was like, these people in Hollywood are such pussies. They got sued one time back in the day by some bullshit artist. If a director tried to tell me that they couldn't use my tattoos that I currently have in theaters, every tattoo I have came from my mind and my artist's mind, and it was a collaboration between us both. My artist doesn't own the tattoos. I do, because they're on my body, and if I want to say you can use them, I'm not going to sue you for having me in the movie and using my tattoos, and no one on the planet could say, oh, that's my art that you used for your tattoo. Really? It's on my body, and we came up with it ourselves, and sure, there's a picture that we based the tattoo off of, but we never have once used a one-for-one tattoo from a picture to someone else's art to what it is now. Whatever it is we've taken and then made it into something else and made it our own. I don't know. I think they could have used Conor's tattoos and it wouldn't have been a problem, but instead they just slightly altered them and made it look like he has completely different tattoos. And in various parts of the movies, I just kept pointing it out, oh look, that's a part of his tattoo, this part on the back. Like, you can see it's like a giant axe and shit, but what he has is like a little angel wings and a thing down the spine. So what they did is just try and cover it up the best they could, but you could definitely tell that there was parts in the movie that he was like sweating or something, and it just like was fading, and you could see the real tattoo underneath, and I was like, ah, they didn't do a good enough job. But Conor and Daniela Melchior, oof. I loved the love story between the Doctor and Patrick Swayze in the first one, so I was really hoping that there was going to be a really, really good love story in this one between Jake and Daniela Melchior, especially because once she showed up, I was like, oh, it's Daniela Melchior, okay, cool. Like, I would love for her to be the one, but instead, Jake Gyllenhaal got super ripped, and they didn't use the love story as well as they wanted to, but this guy was like the big bad Billy Magnuson. And he was in, what did I see him in recently that I liked him in? Oh, he's in Kevin Hart's Lift, and I saw him in that, and every time I see the name Billy Magnuson, I'm like, is this guy the Formula One driver? Is this is that Kevin Magnuson? Is it a completely different guy? Are they related somehow? I don't know. But that's what I think every time I see his name. But this guy, Billy Magnuson, he was in Lift, and I liked his character in that a lot more. And this one, he's trying to play a bad guy, and I don't know, I just didn't really buy that story. Like, the bad guy in the first movie was, you bought, like, he was a vicious, crazy, rich guy. Where this guy's story was like, his dad's in jail, we don't know who his dad is, but he owns the county, and I don't know, it just was dumber. It just hurt my brain, because it felt dumber. You know, it felt like they were trying to dumb it down for the audience. But I will say, Conor versus Jake, the big fight scenes that they had kind of made me laugh. At one point, Conor slams his head into a piano, and he goes, this piano's off key. And he goes, it sounds good to me. And he slams his head into it again. Like, there was some funny parts, but there wasn't that many great parts. And I think it was criminal how much they did not use Daniela Melchior. And she's gorgeous, and I fucking love her so much. And she deserves a bigger role. But overall, I gave this movie 2.5 out of 5 stars. About a 5 out of 10. It got me about half the way it needed to. And I think the OG Roadhouse I gave 4 out of 5 stars, about an 8 out of 10. So yeah, the OG is by far my Roadhouse and the real Roadhouse. And I genuinely think that this movie should have just been called something else entirely and not even tried to connect itself to Roadhouse. Even use the similar lines, you know what I mean? Like, call the restaurant the Double Deuce and use the lines of the Pain, and then let the people go, oh, this is like inspired by Roadhouse. I think people would have liked it more. Instead, you called it Roadhouse, and people showed up for Roadhouse, and then they got this, and that's why people didn't like it. That's my take on it. Comment below, what did you think of the old Roadhouse? What did you think of the new one? I'd love to hear those down in the comment section below. What did you think of Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor in this one? It's currently out on Amazon Prime now if you want to go check it out for yourself. And thank you guys for watching. And stay tuned for more movie reviews coming your way. The next one we're going to be talking about Starship Troopers. That's a good one. So stay tuned for that. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.